Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our post-results teleconference for the quarter ended June 30, 2020. I do wish that you and your family are safe and healthy during this time of the pandemic. For today's call, we have with us Dr. Sharvil Patel, Managing Director, Mr. Nitin Parekh, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Harish Sadana, Chief Strategy Officer, and Mr. Vishal Gaur, Senior Vice President, Corporate Finance. COVID-19 is one of the most complex healthcare challenges of our times, and the world is still grappling with it. On the one hand, we had an urgent task of ramping up production of drugs for COVID-19 and other essential drugs, and on the other hand, we faced challenges of people not being able to come to work and other logistic hurdles. We fought the battle on many fronts and have contributed with therapeutics, preventive vaccines, diagnostics, and essential personal safety consumables. Motivating people to resume work after the lockdown was quite a task. 15,000 people in manufacturing, quality, and research were required for us to work at full throttle. Their concerns had to be addressed and assurance was needed to be given that they were safe at work. We engaged with these employees and their family members to allay their fears. Stringent measures in the form of maintaining adequate social distancing at workplaces, thermal scanning, and providing PPE kits have been put in to safeguard our employees. On one side, all these initiatives helped us in keeping the momentum across the value chain and continue our operations with minimal disruptions. And on the other side, the agile decision-making coupled with focus on execution helped us in finding solutions in line with the progression of the pandemic. From diagnostic kits to portable oxygen cylinders to UV sanitizers, alcohol-based sanitizers, brands such as Nycil, Sanitizer, and Happy Hands, and immunity boosters like Simmune, an exorbic acid and zinc combination, and Supermune, a herbal combination of multivitamins, multiminerals, and zinc. Zydus today provides a range of products needed to fortify and safeguard oneself against the pandemic. In addition, all of you are also aware of our ongoing COVID vaccine program and the studies for evaluation of pegylated interferon alpha B2 2B as a possible treatment for the disease, about which Dr. Sharvil Patel will talk later. Coming to business, though we began the quarter on a quiet note, business started to recover as the quarter progressed, which led to some improvement in the month of May, and the month of June was even better. And as a result, during the first quarter of FY21, we posted a consolidated revenue of 36.4 billion rupees, up 4% year-on-year. Our US generics business grew by 25% on a year-on-year basis on account of volume expansion and new product introductions. Consolidated EBITDA grew to 8.15 billion rupees, up 24% year-on-year. Our EBITDA margin stood at 22.4% during the quarter, which was higher by 360 basis points as compared to 18.8% registered in Q1 of FY20, and by 130 basis points compared to the 21.1 registered in Q4 FY20. Other expenses have degrown during the quarter due to lower spending on marketing and promotional activities and reduction in administrative expenses. Consolidated tax for the quarter was 4.54 billion rupees, up 50% on a year-on-year basis and up 16% on a sequential basis. Our net debt as on the 30th of June 2020 stood at 52 billion rupees against 67.4 billion rupees on the 31st of March 2020. Our India geography, comprising of human health, consumer wellness, and animal health business, registered a revenue of 14.86 billion rupees during the quarter. India human health formulations saw reduced number of prescriptions and a fall in patient footfalls. The US geography, comprising of generics and specialty portfolio, registered a revenue of 16.23 billion rupees during the quarter, down 8% on a sequential basis. Excluding Sentinel, the business was down 7% on a Q-on-Q basis. The degrowth was mainly on account of substantial reduction in sales of seasonal products, namely Oseltamivir capsules and suspension. Our rest of the world business grew by 8% during the quarter on a year-on-year basis. Despite the COVID-19 related disruptions, the business registered significant improvement in the performance vis-a-vis the preceding quarter. Now let me take you through the operating highlights for the first quarter of FY21 for each of our business lines. Starting with our human health business in the India geography, the pharmaceutical market in India showed gradual recovery during the quarter as the market grew by 2% during the month of June after degrowing 11% and 8% in the months of April and May respectively. In line with the market, performance of our business also improved gradually during the quarter as the demand started to show some early signs of recovery, with doctors partially restarting their practice. This trend is likely to pick up pace in the coming months. Overall, our human health formulations business posted a sale of 8.29 billion rupees, down 11% on a year-on-year basis. Large brands having annual sales in excess of 250 million rupees performed better than the overall portfolio. Zydus Healthcare Limited, which spearheads our branded mass and specialty formulation business in India, degrew by 5.9%, excluding the discontinued brands as per AWACS, which was in line with the overall market degrowth. On the therapy fronts, we gained market share in gynecology, pain management, and antidiabetic portfolios during Q1. In the gynecology segment, we have improved our rank from the third to the second, while in the respiratory, cardiac, and GI and anti-infective therapeutic areas, we have maintained our ranks. With the demand generation activity gradually returning to normal, we are hopeful of regaining lost ground in the coming quarters. Like the India human health business, consumer wellness business also registered a gradual improvement on a month-to-month basis after the quiet start. It posted sales of 5.32 billion rupees during the first quarter, down 12%, and a net profit of 892 million, up 11% on a year-on-year basis. Our animal health business in India recovered from the effect of COVID-19 related disruptions as the business posted sales of 1.25 billion rupees during the quarter, with a growth of 4% on a year-on-year basis. Now for the performance of our US formulations business during the quarter gone by, the US was the largest contributor to the consolidated revenues with a 46% share. During the quarter, we relaunched succinylcholine chloride injections in the month of May 2020 from our alternate injectable manufacturing site of Liva near Baroda after the site transfer from the Moraiya formulations facility. We also launched 3 new products during the quarter. We received approvals for 12 new products, including 4 tentative approvals, and we filed 5 additional ANDAs with the US FDA during the quarter. Recently, in the month of July, we successfully completed the site transfer of doxycycline injections as we received an approval for our supplemental abbreviated new drug application from the US FDA for the manufacturing of this product from the injectable manufacturing facility of Liva. Our API business registered sales of 1.31 billion rupees during the quarter, with a growth of 89% on a year-on-year basis. Before I conclude, on behalf of the organization, I must say that one of the most important learnings during this lockdown has been that there are better and more agile ways of doing business. From connecting with customers and business partners through digital means to working from home while maintaining the same level of efficiency were important lessons of this pandemic. We intend to continue these efforts of finding innovative and cost-effective ways to enhance productivity and drive revenue growth using newer technology tools. To this effect, We have already launched an enterprise-wide cost transformation initiative working on the principle of zero-based budgeting. I will now request Dr. Sharvil Patel to take you through the progress and initiatives of our innovation program. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nayak, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, to reiterate Dr. Nayak's point, I hope you and your family are safe and healthy during the health crisis that we all are going through. In midst of this challenging times, we have been able to continue the momentum in the innovation and drug discovery space during the quarter after attaining significant milestones during the previous financial year. Let me give you an account of various actions that have been taken in different areas of drug discovery and innovation. Talking about our progress on the NCE research, recently in the month of July, we are very happy that we have received an approval from the COFEPRIS, which is the Mexican drug regulator, for a study of desidustat in the management of COVID-19. The attack of the COVID-19 causes less and less hemoglobin that can carry oxygen and CO2. The lung cells have been reported to develop extremely intense poisoning and inflammation due to the inability to exchange CO2 and oxygen frequently. Our molecule desidustat mimics the physiological effect of high-altitude oxygen deprivation. At higher altitudes, the body responds to lower oxygen availability with stabilization of hypoxia-inducing factor, and this can lead to increased red blood cell production and improved oxygen delivery to tissues. With this in knowledge, recently we have now also got an approval from US FDA to initiate phase 1 clinical trials of desidustat for chemotherapy-induced anemia. On saroglitazar magnesium, we are happy to inform that the phase 2 double-blinded placebo-controlled clinical trial for the orphan-like indication PBC in the US has been completed, and we shall seek the US FDA's approval for the subsequent phase of clinical trials. On the biologicals front, we have received an approval from both the Drug Control General of India and the Mexican regulatory authorities to conduct clinical trials for our pegylated interferon alpha 2b to treat novel coronavirus. At present, clinical trials in India and Mexico are underway for this molecule. We are in the process of filing an investigational new drug with the US FDA for pegylated interferon alpha 2b for the treatment of mild cases of COVID-19. On the emerging market front, we expect to see an array of approvals for our biological products in the next 6 to 9 months, which will pave way for our biosimilar entry into the emerging markets. Talking about vaccines, we have now successfully completed phase 1 clinical trial for a ZyCoV-D, our plasmid DNA vaccine to prevent COVID-19. The doses of the vaccine administered to healthy volunteers in the phase 1 clinical trial, which began on 15th of July, have been well tolerated. Previously, the vaccine was also found to be safe, immunogenic, and well tolerated in the preclinical toxicity study. The vaccine was able to elicit high levels of neutralizing antibodies in the animal models. We will now commence the phase 2 trial from the 6th of August, which will be conducted in over 1,000 healthy volunteers as part of our adaptive phase 1, phase 2 dose escalation, multi-centric, randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled study. The phase 2 trial will be evaluating the humoral and cellular immune response for the vaccine candidate in line with the current global trial protocols approved globally. Coming to the development of other vaccines, we have also received marketing authorizations in India for the pentavalent vaccine and the Haemophilus influenza type B conjugate vaccine during the quarter. We have also received regulatory approvals to conduct phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials for our diphtheria and tetanus vaccine during the quarter. This marks an important movement for our development of vaccines. Coming to our initiatives on 505(b)(2) and other special initiatives, We are developing a portfolio of branded specialty products comprising of novel concepts offering incremental innovation with an aim to fulfill unmet medical needs, to enhance patient ease and offer better treatment options to physicians. Some of these programs have a focus on orphan and rare diseases. At present, 9 products are under different stages of clinical development, and we are planning to file an NDA for one of the products in the pain management area in the current financial year. During the quarter, we conducted pre-IND meetings for 2 products and have also submitted an orphan designation request for one of the molecules. We are continuing our effort to seek potential strategic collaborations, including inorganic opportunities, to further build onto our specialty business. In addition to building the specialty business, we are also working on expanding our presence in the complex generic space, and till date, we have already in-licensed 14 products with brand value in excess of $15 billion. To augment our presence in this part of the business, further 10 more licensing deals are under discussion with near-term commercialization opportunities. Thank you, and now we move over to the Q&A session. Over to the coordinator for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on your touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Any participant who has a question may enter star and 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Our first question is from the line of Mukesh Prajapati, an individual investor. Please go ahead. Mr. Mukesh Prajapati, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So congratulations for set of numbers, sir. My question is that how is the price rationalization, margin rationalization in US, sir?
So the US, the pricing has been very stable, and our guidance for US generic price erosion is that it would be in the low single digits.
Right. So are we expecting that there will be upward price margins in particular US export looking towards the condition rising across the world?
I say it depends on what kind of supply chain disruptions that are there, but on a normalized basis, we have seen that the price erosions are in the mid to low single digits. So I think that would be our current guidance for the future, unless there are some disruptions.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Tarang Agarwal from Old Bridge Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Congratulations on the strong performance in the US formulations business. On this business, I have queries relating to the injectable space, sir. Just wanted to understand what would be the size of the injectables business in FY20.
So it's very small. Vishal, I don't know if you have the number you can give, but it's not any meaningful number right now.
Yes.
Okay.
The large part of our injectables build-up is going to happen in the next couple of years. I earlier elucidated to the point that we have a very large injectable franchise that we have been developing, including complex injectables. So we have a portfolio of 45 products that are filed and another 30 under development. And we believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, we will have at least 20 plus injectable products which will have good value proposition in terms of limited competition and complexity, which will help us build our overall injectables franchise.
So out of your maybe 108 pending ANDAs as on 31st March 20, 45 are injectables. Would that be the right way to look at it?
No.
Okay.
It's less.
There are oral solids as well, and then there are
and some of them are approved, but they have to under site transfer. So you're saying that stop Moraiya. So Moraiya products are getting site transferred to Liva. So it would not mean they're under approval. A lot of them are approved, but they're obviously under the site transfer process.
Okay, sure. And what is the size, FY20 size of the business?
So it's less than $15 million, 15.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we would request you to limit your questions to 2 per participant. Time permitting, you may come back in the queue for a follow-up question. Our next question is from the line of Akash Agarwal from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Prakash. Thanks for the opportunity and congrats on good numbers. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. So my first question is on the R&D side. So I just wanted to check on, the percentage of sales that you plan to do for the whole of the year and the split between your generics versus your complex stroke innovative, and if you can split that up, and what is the plan ahead?
Hello?
Am I audible?
Dr. Patel, can you hear us?
Hello?
I think it looks like...
Can you
repeat
your question, please?
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to check on the guidance on the R&D expenses and also the split that we are doing currently and in future in generics.
Prakash, just a minute. I think I got a message from Dr. Patel that he's not in a position to hear anything.
Okay, so I'll call back. Mr. Agarwal, I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat your question, but remain connected. We'll call Dr. Shervil and
no worries.
Ladies and gentlemen, request you to please remain connected while we connect Dr. Shervil Patel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We have the line for Dr. Patel connected. And Mr. Agarwal, I've unmuted your line as well. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to check on the R&D as a percentage to sales. What is the plan ahead for this year and next year? And how do we think, the split is going to be, given that our complex generics as well as innovative, initiatives are increasing? So what is the current split and what it could be year after?
So our guidance continues that we will be between 7 to 8% of revenue as a R&D spend, which will be divided largely into our generic portfolio, followed by the NCEs and then biologics and vaccines.
Could help us with the breakup, sir?
So I would say about 60% is on generic, ANDAs, and the rest is divided between the NCEs, biologics, and vaccines.
Okay, and this includes the current COVID-related initiative, phase 1, phase 2 that you are doing?
Yes.
And this is likely to continue next year as well?
Which part?
The 60-40 split?
I think there will be a little increase on the NCE front, but by and large, I would feel that we'll be at best 50-50, if not 60-40.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for this. And secondly, on the the gross margin has improved, but EBITDA margin improved largely due to cost savings. So what has led to this kind of gross margin expansion? A, and secondly, what has been the FCF and debt reduction for the quarter? Thank you.
So, gross margin has been because of better product mix in India business, which has helped our gross margin. And also the US business has done well. So those two businesses have led to better gross margins. Other than that, Vishal, if you can answer the other question.
So Prakash, are you referring to the gross margin on year-on-year basis or quarter-on-quarter basis?
No, gross margin he clearly explained. The other one was on the FCF and debt reduction, sir, for the quarter.
So debt reduction, Mr. Nayak in his opening remarks has already mentioned that our net debt stood at about 5,200 crore rupees, vis-a-vis 6,700 crore rupees reported in March 20. So on a net basis, there is a reduction of 1,500 crore rupees. But on an annualized basis, we believe we should be in a position to reduce the debt by 1,000 crore rupees.
Okay. So this quarter was 1,500 crores reduction?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is a function of what? I mean,
Yes, better control on the working capital as well as some timing differences in terms of business in different geographies. Yes.
Better receivables and working capital management.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Surya Patra from PhillipCapital. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Congratulations for the great set of numbers, sir. Couple of things. Just on the in-license product opportunity that you have mentioned, you have already in-licensed something like 14 odd products, having a business potential of 15 billion and 10 more that you're adding. Can you give some clarity whether these are like currently into the business already and contributing something, and the potential what you are indicating, or it is entirely a futuristic kind of initiative?
No, these are already products that we have in license, which are either filed and yet to be approved or to be filed. Most of them are complex technologies which are sort of dedicated, large part of them driven by technology. And some of them which are to do with first to files, where we didn't have that in our pipeline, and we have been able to partner in a first to file with limited competition. So most of these relays are either where we have strategic advantage because of some chemistry and API, complex carbohydrate chemistry, where there are some injectables which require dedicated resources. So they are in the competition with the limited competition, but all are some are filed and some are yet to be filed, and so these are all for future projections.
Okay, so then in the R&D spend, so whether any cost is likely to be incurred on these assets, and whether that is part of the R&D that we are talking about, or and when from these assets can start contributing, any color on that would be really helpful.
So most of these assets are will be commercialized in the next 3 years. So they are not beyond that. They are in there for the next 3 years.
Okay. Okay. And any cost that would be incurred on that, sir?
Yeah, Vishal can give the technical breakup of it. But yeah, the costs that are mostly incurred are during approvals and the launch.
Okay. Okay. And my second question is on the all of your portfolio that you have created. I think you are one of the company having the entire portfolio of products targeting COVID, whether it is vaccine or it is product or the HCQS or dexamethasone and all that. So now it seems that okay, COVID is going to be there in the global system for some time. So in terms of business, have you seen any opportunity during this quarter because of the COVID from any of your products, or are you or what business progress or what incremental business that you are anticipating out of all your kind of COVID initiatives whether it is vaccine or it is the test diagnostic kit, or it is the existing product or the future product that you are trying to do the clinical trials. So anything on that front would be a kind of.
We are working on multiple fronts. I can give you some example of some of the things. So on the diagnostic test, we are currently able to commercialize about 2.5 to 3 lakh tests commercially every month. On the vaccine front, we are committed to being able to produce 100 million or 10 crore doses annually. That is the capacity that we are planning for the vaccine. So if we meet our clinical endpoints and safety and immunogenicity results, that is a large and sizable opportunity for the coming future. And we are also working on some of the biologicals which are important as therapeutic treatments, which, as I said, pegylated interferon is enrolled phase 2 and almost about to complete that. So some of those will again have meaningful opportunities in the future. And we will also be launching remdesivir, which will add to our further revenues in the coming quarters.
Okay, but there is difficult to really give an indication about potential business that we can gather out of the entire initiative targeting COVID.
So it's large and meaningful, but the commercialization comes, I think we can give a better estimate. Right now, it would be too early to give those estimates. Okay. But knowingly, any treatment that gets approved for COVID has a good commercial potential if you have limited competition.
Okay. Just last question, if I may, sir. See, in the opening remarks, Mr. Nayak has indicated about the additional cost containing measures. So if you can just add what incrementally that we are doing to contain the cost. Although we have already been doing that, the segregated our initiative, our domestic business into mass and branded, and we are anyway rationalize some of the cost there. But now you are talking about additional incremental kind of cost measures. So can you talk something more on that?
Yeah. So they are. I think the whole crisis in the COVID has obviously given us a lot of positive lessons. The first is the whole use of digital technologies we believe can enable us both in the operations and in the front end side to improve on productivity by improving throughput as well as improving our cost. So I think that is one big initiative that we have taken, and we believe through the means of digital we can go forward and reduce cost and improve productivity. The second is we are adopting zero-based budgeting for many of our established businesses because I believe going forward there will be new ways of engagement, ways of our customers. So we are adapting that for the future, and we believe we can bring good cost savings from that. So a large part of it is going to be driven from operations, which is driven towards productivity, which will lead to benefits. And also there are some costs we believe because of digitalization related to travel and other expenses, which will all be curtailed for the future.
Okay. So okay. Yeah, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Kunal Dhamesha from Systematics Group. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. So the first question is on the India business. So what was the percentage of our branded as well as the trade generic business for this quarter? And have you seen any dichotomy in terms of growth in both of these engines? And secondly, on the vaccine phase 1, so how many patients were enrolled? And on phase 2 trial, what is the timeline in terms of enrollment? And then the whether we'll be having any early data, which any time in point will be releasing. So any color on that would be useful. Thank you.
So I'll take the second question first on the vaccines. We are starting a phase 2 trial where we are hoping to enroll 1,000 patients. 1,000 healthy volunteers, and we believe we will be able to complete that by October. So that's our timeline. And as and when we see the recruitment improving, we will keep everybody updated. So that's our current timeline for this vaccine trial that is ongoing. With regards to the formulations business, we have, I think, Vishal, if you can give the breakup of GX and the branded, I think it's about 10% GX. Vishal? Or
Sorry, sir. Hello.
How much is GX as part of the overall?
Yeah, it's about 10%. It's about 10%.
Yeah. So I would say the branded side is not better than the generic side on a comparable basis.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take our next question from the line of Sameer Baisiwala from Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks, and good evening, everyone. So is it possible to give some more color around 1,500 crore debt that you have, managed this quarter? Very impressive. But if you can break it down, how much was receivable, internal accrual, or some other head that you had?
So, Sameer, Nitin here. So basically, as you know, in the different business and especially in US business, the charge date, has a different kind of, tenure period, depending on the, primary sales and secondary sales. So with the kind of, efforts in terms of liquidity management that we did, we have been able to get, better collections than our sales for, certain months. Also in, India and other geographies, we had, stringent, controls in terms of management of inventory, receivables, etc. And also certain, postponement of, certain programs, including CapEx, for a limited period of time. That was in the, light of exigencies, during lockdown. So that has helped us in terms of, about 1,500 crore rupees of, net debt reduction during the quarter. However, on annual basis, some of these would be of a, reversing nature, especially in terms of, receivable part in US, and therefore we, on a conservative basis, still believe that 1,000 crore plus kind of reduction for the entire year will be possible.
And if I can add to what Nitin said, we have set up a cash management office to manage our daily cash flows and everything as part of the response to the COVID. And what we have seen is because of that, other than US, which is sort of cyclical, we have seen better receivables and much better healthy receivables than sales in the quarters, in the months gone by. So that has also helped our cash position. And obviously, CapEx is delayed for want of issues related to, availability of doing some of those.
Okay, so and your year-end target is 1,000 crore down from June end or from March end?
From March end.
March.
So as Nitin said, some of the things which will be reversing in the times to come, including the higher collection in US compared to the sales. So by March 21, we are expecting to reduce the net debt by 1,000 crore compared to March 20.
Okay, got it. And sir, what's the update on Moraiya?
So Moraiya, we have completed all our remediation, and we have written to the FDA for requesting them to start the review and request for a desktop audit if possible.
Sir, the expectation earlier was to get it resolved in the current calendar year. Does that still stand?
We are hopeful that our earlier, before COVID, we were hoping for an inspection by end of this calendar year, which would have meant that by first quarter of next calendar year, we could have seen resolution provided we had a successful audit. So now in response to what way the FDA looks at the review, it will all depend on that, but we are still hopeful that we can stay with those timelines, but it is still unknown right now.
Okay, and so on HCQS, was it a big incremental part of the driver for this quarter? I mean, not your regular base business, but just the COVID indication?
Yeah. So we did have a higher sales for HCQ for some part in the US, which is our new contracted business that we have, and also the state and central government sales that we did in the quarter, which still continues in this quarter.
So the reason why I'm asking is this may be, transitory, may not be. So is that a big number, 100, 200 crores, or a smaller number?
No.
All of them?
No, Vishal can answer, but it is not that big.
Okay. Vishal, any color you want to add?
It's less than 100 crore rupees, incremental sales.
Okay, great. Sir, with your permission, one final question on 45 injectables, and that's quite important for your growth story next 2 years. So just wanted to understand how many of these are approved and how many of them are presently tied to Moraiya versus the new site, Liva. So just some clarity on this would be very helpful.
Yeah, so I won't have it offhand on me, Samir, but I will definitely make sure that Vishal gives you the ones which are in Moraiya, which are getting site transferred, and the other facilities where we have filed the products from of this 45, and the remaining that we are to be filing, which is another 30, which is under plan. Some of these are partnered in also, filed and to be filed. The other part, the good part I can only say for this is that, our big manufacturing facility, which was Liva, it got succinylchloride chloride, which was a audit that got completed successfully, but we have also we believe, got doxycycline, which is on a new line, which gives us the confidence that we'll get further site transfer approvals from now 2 lines instead of 1 line, because only one line was inspected earlier, but the second line approval has also come through. So that would mean that Liva will see further ramp up of site transfers from Moraiya.
Okay, great. I'll take that from Vishal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Harith Ahmad from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. On the COVID vaccine, you mentioned that you finished phase 1 and then you're about to start in the process of starting phase 2. So in the phase 1 study, was there an immune response that you were able to monitor in terms of neutralizing antibodies or any other cellular response, or is it a part of the phase 2 trials?
No, as part of phase 1, we will look at initial results, but large part of that data will come from phase 2. The phase 1 is initially set up for making sure that there is safety, the safety protocols and the safety is seen. So the following results which you are talking about, you will see in the next 4 to 8 weeks with that data.
Okay. And on Saroglitazar, you were planning phase 3 trials in NASH indication in the US. Any updates around that?
Yeah, so we believe that we are still committed to in the coming quarter to go to the FDA with our next clinical trial protocol for NASH, as well as also working, because we have completed our TBC phase 2 enrollment also. So we will actively be also working on how to take it forward for PBC as well. So 2 indications. In the next 3 to 6 months, we will be taking FDA's advice on them.
Okay, and any progress on the partnership plans for these trials?
So partnership is still, we have not officially started any discussions on partnership. We are still working with a consultant to help us formulate our plan. And once the whole plan is formulated, then we would reach out in terms of partnership or any other model which will help propel this trial forward.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. We'll take our next question from the line of Sapna Jawar from Dolat Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for taking my question. Also, my questions pertain to the annual report, specifically on the other expenses side. We've seen 2 heads. One, the miscellaneous expense, and second, the legal and professional fees increased, rather high. and the miscellaneous expense has probably increased to around 800 odd crores now. Any breakup there would be helpful. Hello?
I can forward that to you offline.
Sure. And the second question, with regards to the COVID trials and the entire range that we've done so far, can you guide us the amount of investment that has gone through, in these trials so far, and how much do we intend to spend more over here?
So we don't give individual plans on individual programs. The substantial part of investment is still to be made. I would say only initially the 15 to 20% of investment is made, but now we have to make two investments. One is obviously the larger trial, and followed by investment in manufacturing as well.
And this would, I'm assuming the large part of these trial expenses would be carried only in the R&D side, or will we be capturing in some other line item as well?
No, it will be in the R&D.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a next question from the line of Nitin Agarwal from IDFC Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for taking my question. Sir, on the US business, we've seen a QOQ sharpish decline in the business. Can you help us understand the drivers in terms of what sort of led? Because one would have thought, because what the understanding was that there is no seasonality in our business or no sort of largish one-off sales in the Q4 US sales. And linked to that, how should we look at US sales progression through the quarters now for the year?
So the main seasonality that we see for the US business is because of the oseltamivir capsules and the suspension, which is highly seasonal and which is one big gap that is always there between quarter 4 and quarter 1. So the majority of the drop is because of that and the AG product. But beyond that, we had, I think it's just a question of, we get a lot of one-time buy opportunities, and we completed a lot of them in the quarter 4. We believe now in the coming quarters we would again we have built up some further inventory, so we would further get those opportunities. So our guidance for the financial year is we'll definitely grow in mid to high single digits for the generics business in the US. And we are on track for that.
Okay. And then secondly, in terms of on your emerging market business, the biologics approvals and all that you talked about, the impact of that, will it be visible, start getting visible from this year, or it's going to be more like a FY22 onwards opportunity?
Meaningfully FY22, but we have a good traction going on. I think the key milestones would be the approvals in many of these markets, which once we get, we will obviously inform, which will be able to then predict the sales. So as I said, the critical approvals we are hoping for are from Russia, from Latin America, in Colombia and Mexico. So those three are in deck, and we are very hopeful that they will come through in the next 6 months, which will then lead to meaningful sales in the coming year.
And so how many of biologics are we looking at on average across these major geographies to come through? And secondly, is the fact that we're not filing them, these biologics in the US, or not looking to get EMA approval right now, is that a hindrance in getting approvals in these geographies?
So in the geographies that we have filed, we don't believe they are hindrances, because we already, at least all the geographies that we have filed for, we already have been audited in terms of our plant, both formulations and API. So we are regulatory-wise clear in terms of our capabilities on the manufacturing side. Now on the review of the dossier, I think we're in the final stages in many of these markets. In some of the markets, we have also done local studies as is required. So I think we are comfortable with some of our biosimilars in many of these emerging markets. The advanced markets where we have not filed is because obviously we don't have the EMA approval. So we don't have current plans to take them for that route. We are taking a next wave of biosimilars for the developed markets. But in the first wave, it is only limited to markets in Latin America, some markets of Africa and North Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia.
So would you be able to name some of these key of the important largest biosimilars you're looking at, the relevant?
So we are looking at PEG-GCSF, trastuzumab, bevacizumab, adalimumab, and followed by rituximab and follicle-stimulating hormone are in the first wave of products, and parathyroid hormone are in the first wave of products that we have filed or I have filed and moving forward. In the next wave, you will see rituximab and follow on the next wave of biosimilars.
Okay, thank you and best of luck.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Arvind Kothari from Niveshaay. Please go ahead.
Thank you. All my questions have been answered. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Anubhav Agarwal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. One clarity on the injectable sales. Before we had the issue at Moraiya, we were doing roughly about $50 million from the injectable sales. So if you assume no more approvals for us, if you start assuming products, so in first 2 years, that's the first goalpost for you to get to $50 million injectable sales?
This year, definitely we will try and achieve those numbers. But in the next 2 years is where the large part of the portfolio comes through. So then we are talking about larger value. As I said, we believe our injectable value for the FY 24 is between 150 to 200 plus $1 million.
Okay, sure. And one clarity on the vaccine. Now, by the time your phase 2 will be done, which will be about October, we will have phase 3s of some of the global vaccines which have been done. So how do you evaluate path forward? Would you evaluate your candidate versus them, take a call on whether to proceed or not? How are you thinking about it on the vaccine?
No, it will all depend on the data that we get, but we very strongly, I think globally it is very clear that there cannot be a single vaccine that can solve the issue that we are currently facing. So there will be multiple vaccines that we believe are moving forward, which will be approved. And also the kind of requirement that would be there in terms of at least sometimes 50%, some people say larger immunization required. I believe there will be multiple vaccines that will be approved and will be available. And depending on the results, obviously the success will be there. We are planning for 100 million dose capacity, and that we believe if our vaccine is successful, this is the kind of investment that we are planning for. Obviously, if our vaccine data is very good, which we believe will be, then we will look at how do we further build upon that capacity through partnerships.
Sure. That's so one clarity on the point which you mentioned over the India business earlier, the use of digital medium which drive higher sales productivity. I just want the clarity here. So the use of digital, are you referring to promotion to doctors, or you are referring to monitoring the calls done by the sales force more effectively? Which one segment were you referring?
It is all, we are doing everything. So it will be a doctor-patient connect, and we bring some solution that can be independent. We are talking about how do we do better scientific medical education, which is the large part of what we do in a more faster and agile manner. And we are looking at how do we do better calls, better frequency of calls, and more precise calls, which will improve productivity of our sales reps and also reach a larger audience through the digital platform. And also which would lead to lesser travel and lesser other lesser other costs.
Sure. Okay. Maybe after a couple of quarters, I will just check with you again on this, because this right now it's very fluid timeline. How this actually, because my view was this is so dependent on what other players are doing. Maybe if the market moves towards it, then it's much easier. Internally, you can adopt more and more digital. Whether doctors are attuned to talking more on digital, I was not so sure about even now.
And that is a big question, and that is, as you said, it is only time will tell. So we are making a very honest attempt at that. We are building a full suite for the doctor. Make sure that our final outcome is how do we get better patient outcomes. And if we are able to build a meaningful digital tool to address that, I think we will see success. But yeah, it is. We are going ahead with it. We will be launching it very soon. but the proof of the result will be obviously a few quarters from now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Nimesh Mehta from Research Delta Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Just wanted to know, how big do you think is the market for Remdesivir in India and other countries where we have got a license?
So I don't think I can fully estimate that, but today there is a significant shortage on Remdesivir. And this is a lyophilized injectable product, and a very large, vial size and volume, which leads to lower capacities. So I believe it is whoever has significant capacities will be able to do well. What we believe is we should be able to sell out most of our capacities. I feel the advantage for us is that we develop, manufacture our own API, and we manufacture our own finished dosage form formulations. And we have 4 facilities that can manufacture lyophilized products, and we are going to do it through all 4 facilities. So we are building significant size and scale, which will, and we are backwardly integrated completely. So we believe we will create a meaningful availability of the product, which is the need of the hour. Today, the major concern is both access and affordability of this molecule. We hope that by coming to market, we will be able to address both.
I see. So, okay. So I understand the prices also will come down basically because more and more players will come in. Just to stay on Remdesivir, I understand it's a fluid situation, but some ballpark for Indian market will help, and also, how big is the export opportunity vis-a-vis our Indian opportunity? Do you think that there is a meaningful, there are about 127 countries included, so can this be bigger than the India opportunity that we are envisaging?
I think currently it is difficult to predict the opportunity. We are in the midst of discussing that and working out with different partners, because you have to go through a regulatory process also. While it may be abrupt and short, one thing is very clear: this drug is not easily available, and because it is a difficult technology, it is not easily scalable in different countries. So India can definitely play a meaningful role in creating and not only for India but for other countries where the need is. And India is a large manufacturer of some of these things. So we believe it is a meaningful opportunity, but to give an estimate, I believe with the current need of it, we probably, whatever you can make, one should be able to sell. But we have to wait and see how the market forms.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Neha Manpuria from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Kumar Mehta from Vallum Capital. Please go ahead.
So thank you for the opportunity. You mentioned the number of $150 million for injectables. So I was just trying to confirm, this is the potential sales to your P&L. That is correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, sir, when I look at the injectable space, between 2022 to 2024, we are going to see a good number of products losing exclusivity. So, just wanted to understand the launches which you're talking about while you build up your injectable business. Are those mainly aligned to those LOEs, or you're also talking about launching a lot of existing Para III products and including onco injectables also?
So definitely there are onco injectables, and on the injectables front, there are a lot of injectables with complex chemistries that there are no patents, but there are no generics. So you can say a lot of our in-licensing opportunities have been products where there are no generics without any LOE left. So large part of them are those. Some of them some of them are where there are huge shortages in the US market. So we have identified those type of products, and then there are certain products which we believe are good volume products, which if there is any disruption, we can see some meaningful gain. So it's a mix of portfolio. We have an oncology injectable site which is approved by the FDA. We have a Liva site which is approved, and we have one more injectable site which has also approval. So 3 of these sites and through our partnered in products will help us achieve these revenues.
Understood, sir. So second question I have is on the API side, where we've seen almost the entire industry now report very strong business momentum in this segment. So would you look at external API as a lever of growth going forward for the next at least few quarters until we see? I'm sure you must be seeing good inquiries about the APIs you have on your portfolio. Would you as a board, will you take a decision to allocate more capacities for external sales, provided the pricing is in your favor?
Yeah, so I think our API business has turned around and started to do well from merchant sales point of view, and with the kind of products that we have planned for in terms of good capacities and good capabilities, we will see a good momentum for our API, our own in the API business in terms of third-party sales, and we see good momentum for it. This quarter has also good results, and with the kind of orders that are in hand, they should continue to do well in the coming quarters as well.
Okay, and the final question from my end is, we have a facility, we have an investment in a facility for transdermal. So just wanted to clarify, is this only transdermals, or can we manufacture the whole topicals category in these products? And are the filings covering transdermals where generics are essentially very rare, or we are covering all basic products on the topical side also?
No, so our transdermal facility, we have 3 facilities. One is in Moraiya, in the oral solids. We have a plant. We have a Zydus Technologies facility in SEZ, and we have one facility in US near Baltimore. So those are our 3 transdermal facilities which cater to transdermal products, and that can only cater to transdermal products.
So you will not have topicals or manufacturing in those plants?
Topical is a different facility which is also approved, and we sell our topicals through that facility.
Understood, sir. Could you just help me identify which is the site where we sell topicals?
It's in Changodar.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Krishna Prasad from Franklin Templeton. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my question. On the vaccine front, how large would the phase 3 have to be? I mean, is there a sense that you have now?
It's too early. Obviously, the phase 2 will also lead to some better understanding, but we believe it will be between 5,000 to 10,000 patient study.
Okay. And in terms of delivery of this DNA vaccine, is it just a regular injectable, or will you need a device or something to improve the efficacy?
So we are trying out both regular injectable, and we have also added a device for better delivery, and we are trying our trials are going on for both.
Okay, and the phase 2 would tell you what would be the route?
Yeah. It will very clearly tell which dose, because we are trying multiple dose and multiple delivery platforms.
And would you share the phase 1 efficacy data at some point? Whatever you have generated so far?
Definitely. Once the data will be out, we will be definitely sharing it.
Okay. And that you said is in 4 to 6 weeks, right? That's what you mentioned is 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. So it will depend on the completion of all cohorts, and once we have results of all cohorts, we'll definitely share it.
Understood. So just on injectable side, I think you mentioned you will get to 150 to 200 million by FY24, right? I mean, if my understanding is correct. So how are you thinking about this trajectory? Like, is it like going to be somewhat more front-end or more equal, or are some of the larger products really more back-ended here?
So it is, I mean, you would see meaningful increases in the next year, but more importantly, it is FY23, FY24, so the last 2 years where you see this significant scale up, because large part of the complex products are something that we are filing now or have filed. So because they're complex, we believe at least one CRL, which will mean at least a 14 to 16 month approval cycle. So looking at all of that, we are looking at FY23 and FY24 as meaningful ramp up to the injectables business.
Sure. And just last question here. On the injectable side, we are seeing, almost every Indian player kind of build capacity. I know it is today very attractive, but I'm just wondering, how are you thinking about the medium term? And for example, you've done a great job in oral solids in remaining competitive. How are you thinking about a more similar kind of strategy in injectable side?
So, it's a couple of strategies. I think what is maybe a little bit unique for us, and maybe that is also because we were late to the game also, is that we have these three strong manufacturing footprints, which is what we feel we will consolidate, and there could only be further incremental investment, but not any meaningful more investment. And whatever we have planned for, we have sufficient capacities for the next 4 to 5 years. What we are now doing is stitching up a lot of partnerships in licensing a lot of injectables, because the kind of injectables that are differentiated and high value will mean dedicated capacities and dedicated capital investment. And I think to do everything and build so many, every product requiring a separate kind of line and a separate kind of skid, and the whole system was becoming very expensive. So we have formed meaningful partnerships from Europe and some parts of Asia, where we've been able to in-license complex injectables. A lot of these injectables are also mean complex carbohydrate chemistries, which means the APIs are very difficult to find. And we have forged very good relationships there. So I think our model is in a way de-risked, because we are not relying only on our plants. We are spread in terms of our partnerships in Europe and there, and our own plant, which will deliver some of the base volumes and some of the important launches that will come up. So it is diversified in its risk, which is the biggest challenge when it comes to injectables. And we have formed meaningful partnerships where companies have demonstrated successes in Europe or some other market, and we are bringing those products to the US. So I feel it's a well-balanced strategy. Obviously, time will only tell how successful we are. But I'm very excited about how we've been able to forge some of these partnerships.
Mr. Krishna Prasad, may we request you to return to the queue, please?
Yes, thank you. That's all from my end. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Tushar Manudhane from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So just on this desktop inspection, now it's been now almost 3-4 months. In fact, start of the COVID has helped not just Cadila but other companies to persuade this desktop audit. But is there any guidelines given out by US FDA which then gives some clarity in terms of when can this happen?
So there are no clear guidelines. There is a view of desktop audit, and FDA is conducting desktop audits. So that is what I can say. Our Liva approval of the new product doxycycline is through a desktop audit.
Okay. Thanks, sir. That's it.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraints, that was our last question. I now hand the conference back to Mr. Ganesh Nayak for closing comments. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Stay safe and look forward to interacting with you again in the beginning of November. Thank you and good night.